Early in 2012, Nick Rochowski and Tim Bowditch began a project to photograph the hidden spaces and pedestrian paths under London's orbital M25 motorway. The M25's 117 miles, or 188 kilometres of road, took more than 11 years to build and was opened in 1986, costing £1 billion. It's estimated that 200,000 vehicles use it every day. However, the M25 has never been viewed affectionately by drivers. It has been variously nicknamed the world's largest car park, the road to hell, and the road to nowhere, which is perhaps technically true. Nick and Tim, however, have produced an altogether different take on the motorway. Their photographic survey reveals a rich subterranean landscape filled with lunar-like textures and strange objects. Hind Land is the pair's first photographic collaboration, and their approach was influenced by views of the motorway seen on Google Maps.
One of the initial aspects of the project is that we looked at it from a bird's eye perspective using Google Maps. And the first thing that really strikes you about it is how much of an impact it's made on the landscape, which you can only really see in that context when you're looking at it from above. And once you see that, what intrigues you is what lies beneath, what's under those areas that you can no longer see and that people drive over every day. I think when you're on the M25, you don't realise an end or a beginning, it's just a continuous thing. It's come to define the boundary of London, and it's this axis point that we wanted to really look at and explore.
We started looking at these points more closely on the map where footpaths intersected the motorway, and then became intrigued as to what lie beneath.
From the start, the pair decided to set themselves rules that would determine the nature of the resulting imagery.
One of the rules we set straight away was that we wanted to photograph these scenes at night, in black and white. They had to be public access. You had to be looking within the tunnel, not looking out. So it had to be looking down, up, or kind of at whatever we're composing.
No looking out. And even if we were sort of slightly drawn to that, we'd make sure no, because if we were slightly looking at thinking that could be a nice composition, then we'd throw that idea in the bin straight away and make sure we focus on this, make sure in the middle and look for something in this area instead. So then, you sort of push yourself a bit more then.
The process of making the rules of distillation is to reduce down where the project can go, and how you're going to approach each thing each time, and then you get the variables which come from the landscape and generally actually come from the technology withdrawing that from the landscape. We had to be quite strict as well and adhere to these rules and the parameters that we set up in the first place, because when you get to some of these locations, they are actually quite seductive in terms of looking out of the tunnels and when the sun's setting over the motorways. And we just had to rein that in and just say, no, we're here to document what you can't see from above, and we'll wait till it's dark, and we kind of give the camera this pitch black scene and just see what it extracts from the landscape.
Because you have these rules and you're not looking at this typically beautiful angular aesthetic, because you've had this rule, it makes you focus on an area and observe it and study it further. And actually it will bring out a composition that you may not have seen if you didn't have these rules in place. So it definitely pushes you creatively.
Sometimes the rule would be a simple one, such as avoiding the crude chalk drawings often found under some of the bridges. Or more practically, the choice of camera, which became a defining aspect of this project.
The equipment we're using to photograph this project, the main element of it is a digital back. Now, there's a company in America who had been developing an achromatic version of this digital back. So an achromatic version has a much wider light spectrum that it captures. And what that means is that it can look into the infrared and the UV spectrums of light, as well as daylight, of course.
the sensor doesn't have these cut-off filters that normal digital cameras will have. So it's absorbing all of these different light spectra.
Yeah, because it sees these other wavelengths of light, you don't really know what you're going to get, which is that's the sort of unknown within this rigid construct we're working to. There's a certain unknown element. You compose in the day and you can see a certain amount, but the camera is capturing a completely different fields of light in the dark.
For the exhibition of these works, the pair have reinterpreted the experience of being underneath the M25. To a backdrop of sound recorded and produced by Mathieu de Kersaint-Géraudot, they have created a darkened gallery space hung with floor-to-ceiling images. As a complement to the exhibition, Nick and Tim have decided to produce a publication in the form of a fold-up map, which features one of their pictures on one side and a specially commissioned drawing by artist Alison Moffat on the other that loosely plots the sites of their photographic exploration of the M25. The M25 was constructed with more than 2 million tonnes of concrete and 3.5 million tonnes of asphalt, and in certain parts has 12 lanes of traffic. But despite the constant noise and the cold nighttime shoots, Nick and Tim found the experience could also be a relaxing one.
Sometimes we'd be in places and we'd just be sitting there and you'd kind of be meditating in some ways because you're actually out in the country somewhere, but you're just under a massive motorway. But you still feel like you're out in the country.
Freezing your arse off.
Yeah. Yeah.